Coaching news, also kind of out of nowhere in college football. On Thursday, November 7th, Florida announces they are going to retain Billy Napier. He is going to be their coach next year. They wanted to get this out of the way before there were any more for sale signs on the Gainesville house and say, hey, this is our guy. This is who we're sticking with. And it's kind of a gamble for Florida, right? It's his year 3. He's 15-18. Things have not gotten better since he came there from Louisiana Lafayette, or I guess the University of Louisiana now, the Raging Cajuns still. And they've announced they're going to stick with him. By the way, that was a guy that Baylor was looking at not all that long ago. You guys remember that? After Rule left? Absolutely. Absolutely. Billy Napier was on that list. God, I think of some of the guys that were rumored to Baylor, both in the one where they got in the cycle they got Matt Rule, and the cycle they got Dave Aranda. I think back to that Rule cycle, which was Tom Herman, Sonny Dykes, PJ Fleck. We're all in that. And then it was Matt Rule, and it was like, what? Who is that? And then this time around, Billy Napier was absolutely up at the top of that list. I'm trying to remember who some of the other ones were. If you remember, drop them in the comments. Obviously, Joey McGuire was a focus because the players were tweeting about him, but I'm trying to remember who some of the other ones were. I really only remember Billy Napier, that name coming up a lot. If you remember, drop it in the comments. Some of the other guys rumored for that job. Instead, of course, they go with Dave Aranda. And I did get some messages from some Baylor fan friends this morning or yesterday morning. God, I got to stop doing that, about this Napier news. And it was like, what does this mean for Dave Aranda if they're already announcing this during the season? And I'm like, well, I don't think it changes much. I mean, again, I've stuck with this all along. If Baylor makes a bowl game and has a winning record, which I guess they're not the same thing, because he has gone to a bowl game and had a losing record on the season, then I think they stick with him. I don't think they need to make this grand announcement or statement from the AD on Twitter. I don't think they need to do that. I think they'll stick with him. But what fascinated me is looking at it from the other side and wondering if Florida looked at this Dave Aranda situation as kind of a barometer, measuring stick for their decision with Billy Napier. Because a big reason why they're sticking with Napier is because they have a good young core on the team, like very young. And the reason is DJ Lagway, Baylor legacy DJ Lagway, the number 1 quarterback recruit in the country, who picked Florida over Baylor. And I was sitting here thinking, man, if they fire Napier, Lagway might be Sawyer Robertson's successor. We just keep this thing going, right? After next year, obviously. But they have announced they're sticking with Napier, and that's a big reason why. And so I knew he'd had some recruiting momentum last year. I looked at the 2025 recruiting rankings, though. He's 32nd and on 3, Florida is, for the 2025 class. And they're not in the top 50 on 247. They're 1 spot ahead of Baylor on 3, and at least 18 spots behind them in 247, because 247 is Baylor at number 32, which is where Florida ranks on 3. Again, 15-18, man, losing record, 3 years. You've given him a shot. And now they're sticking with him because of this young core that they've got. Sounds an awful lot like the Dave Aranda decision last year. Guy was in year 4, losing record, had good young pieces on the team, had some recruiting momentum, got even more once they retained him. And that was a huge reason Mack Rhoades stuck with Dave Aranda. I know this Baylor winning streak is not taking on national attention. I know that. But maybe, just maybe, the powers that be at the University of Florida, a once proud program, is looking over to Baylor and saying, you know, it worked for them. They're going to have a winning record this year. West Virginia won 9 games last year. It worked with them. But more likely, it's a Scott Frost situation, which I thought the Dave Aranda situation was going to be. Hey, we're getting out ahead of this. We're sticking with this guy the same way Nebraska did before Scott Frost last year. And Scott was gone before the end of September the next season. So I'm surprised a program like Florida has as much patience as it does with a guy like Napier. And what's more amazing is when I was first getting into college football, Florida was the program. USC, because it was on the tail end of Pete Carroll with, or I should say, really more the tail end of Matt Leinart, Reggie Bush was when I first started getting into college football. Alabama had not quite risen yet. They didn't have Nick Saban yet. And it was the beginning of Florida. Chris Leak with Urban Meyer, national champs in 06 and 08. And the sheer amount of thugs they had on those teams, man. Oh, brother. But they were so good. They were the top of college football. And they have just not been that in like 15 years. They've had some good teams in there. Kyle Trask got them to the SEC championship game. I almost said Cal Trask, which would be ironic because the book that my laptop is supported on in my home studio is East of Eden with main character Cal Trask. For those of you not read that or seen the brilliant Elia Kazan, James Dean movie. Anyway, I'm getting into circles here, but I'm wondering how much Florida actually saw from that and said, you know what, there's a precedent here. And maybe they're thinking we don't like some of the young guys, but honestly, I mean, Florida, you would think should be making a push for a guy like Rhett Lashley, who has taken SMU to the top 20. And they have had a heck of a year. He was a hot name when he was the OC at OU. And now he's finding success as a head coach at SMU. We'll see how they keep winning in the next few years with Keenan Hall taking all the recruits and bringing them down here to Baylor. But I just think of a guy like that, and it's like, wouldn't you rather try someone like that than go forth with this Billy Napier experiment? But it's DJ Lagway. And if DJ Lagway transfers out of there and hits the portal this offseason, they might rethink the Napier thing. I really do. But a lot of parallels between that and the Dave Aranda decision. So are they looking at Baylor? Are they looking at Baylor for this? Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Thank you for making it to the end of the video, and thank you for making the Locked On Podcast Network part of your daily routine. We have got you covered with the most Baylor Bears athletics coverage of any outlet that's not directly tied into Baylor University. So if you want more of that, be sure to like and subscribe. Ring that notification bell to get notified every time we're dropping a video here on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks, and sick 'em.